Is that working? Testing? Right. Right. I'm glad someone's arching it up. I'm feeling a bit underdressed. I'm looking at how many hats, beanies and scarves there are here, and I'm feeling very underdressed and wimpy actually, but it is the middle of winter, what could I expect? So I'm going to attempt to talk about 3 sessions of trips. First trip was from Hobart down to Commonwealth Bay on my yacht and then back to Hobart. Second trip was across on a bigger vessel across to South America through the Southern Ocean, and then jumping on Spirit of Sydney and spending a fair bit of time over in the green area. And then more recently, a couple more seasons working down in the Antarctic Peninsula on Ocean Tramp. So it's really just a snippet of bits and pieces. I'll just start with a quick introduction. So I grew up sailing. This is my parents' boat. Some of you might recognise it. Was down in Kettering for a long time. And then worked on container ships, so sort of jumping from one extreme to the other. So all around the world on container ships I was a navigating officer. When I got sick of that, I ended up jumping on square riggers, so I spent a couple of years on Soren Larsen, a 100-foot wooden brigantine as first mate around the South Pacific. Huge drop in pay, big increase in lifestyle. I certainly know which one I preferred. Yeah, so the square rigger was great. So that was pretty much, what did I spend? Close to 10 years at sea, I think, on different ships, and I also worked on fishing boats. And then I also had my own yacht. I bought a little 26-footer and sailed it. And in the end, ended up sailing it single-handed across the Tasman. It was the middle of winter, and I had a 3.5 horse Tohatsu that was broken. So I think it took me about 16 days across the Tasman against the westerlies. And I got to Tassie and decided I needed a bigger boat, so steel boat for Antarctica. So rebuilding it, welding, all up at the Maritime College. I had an idea I wanted to take the boat to Antarctica, so I beefed everything up and got it ready to go to Antarctica. So as you can see, chaos. If anybody's gone to sea the weeks before you go to sea, a chaos, and I'm more chaotic than most. Kind of lucky that I managed to get my brother and my father as crew. So there's a bit of story behind that. There was only one brother mad enough to say yes, and then it was me and my brother, youngest brother, and my dad came along and said, "Can I go?" And I was sort of thought about it for a bit. I thought, do I really want to put up with him for 3? And then I thought, hey, he's good at fixing things on the boat, so I'll bring him along. And it turned out to be a good decision, I think. So finally, it took about months to get the boat ready. Finally, we were kind of ready.
What design is it?
She's a Roberts 34. Yeah. Just very solid. She was a very strong boat, like an ocean-going Sherman tank, pretty much. We reckon there was probably close to 2 tons of extra gear on the boat. We had our little watch schedule going, so 2 on, 4 off.
The barometer's dropping pretty fast.
Gotta get the drogue line sorted.
Cooking up a feed for the next few days. Wind's really starting to pick up now, probably got 40 odd knots, so I'm going to chuck another reef in main or drop it all together.
So we did actually get knocked down that night. We had a big wave come through. Yeah, so everything was fine. It's always the way with it. You're trucking along, you're thinking, yep, we're so fast sailing, all's good, and then one big wave comes through. And normally you can sense them. Normally you get this feeling of dread and you get it. But this one, I was just actually going out the hatch and I had the door open, and that's when I felt everything go and I went, uh-oh, we're in trouble here. But by that stage, the door was open, my leg was on one side, my other leg was in the cockpit, and I was kind of wedged there. It was kind of good because I couldn't go anywhere. I was wedged under the hard dodger, But when the wave hit us like a sledgehammer, totally covered in water, I was underwater, and the water was rushing between my legs down below, which is fine, except my bunk was right down leeward, so it was all pouring through between my legs onto the bunk, which was absolutely soaked.
And I was lying in my bunk, and we took a knockdown.
We were nice and happy until Mr. Neptune decided to give us a call. So my dinner is now kind of on the walk there. That's all we've got left. Unfortunately, Ben was just coming down the hatch when the biggest wave we've had all trip decided to come along and say good day. So everything was drenched.
Both my sleeping bags are drenched.
Both Dad's sleeping bags. Somehow managed to go to windward and get my sleeping bag. And Ben's bunk is completely drenched as well.
Just going to say, there was a bit of a blessing in disguise with this whole thing. Like, my pillow there is just saturated, but a little bit earlier in the trip, one thing that I don't eat seafood, you know, so the fish curry here was a bit of a problem. I don't really like it. My brother loves his tuna. We were sailing down, and he's sitting on the step there with a tin of tuna, and a wave hit, and the whole tin of tuna landed on my pillow. And it was, you know, it was that oily tuna, you know, the one that's in oil, went all through my pillow stunk. So having all this salt water over it was great. My pillow no longer stunk of tuna anymore. It was great.
As well.
So we're going to start doing some bilge pumping, Susie.
So now it's the clean up, and I've got to restart dinner.
So that's the little fella that we've just been through. It was most unpleasant. And this is what's coming. It's about 3 times the size. Looks horrible.
Halfway party. 1422 miles, 7:11 to go. Oh, what a cake. So look at it, Matt.
Cape Denison.
Cape Denison.
Cake venison. Okay, I've come down a bit.
The oven was on a bit of a slant, so we had a bit of a hill on this side and nothing on this side, so we thought, look.
It's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. We were streaming a drogue for a fair bit of this time and running off, so it was a short run on the 10th. 11th, 12th, 13th we're at now, which is closing the 60th parallel. We've gone through the 2/3 mark, and once we're inside this line here, we're inside the Antarctic treaty waters for the remainder of the way. We expect to sight icebergs from about here on.
Our first iceberg.
Yay!
Deftly spotted by Dad, minutes after taking over from me on watch. Bastard.
I gotta watch out.
Mission number 3 of the trip achieved. I should point out with that one, we did have a bit of a bet, a bit of a sweepstake. So it was who spotted the iceberg. Now there's 2 functions. One was we don't really want to hit an iceberg, so the first person that spots it, that's great, that's incentive. So the first person that spots it gets a watch off, so they're going to look pretty hard. And then we had a bet as to who was going to be closest to the latitude that we spotted it, and that was a tot of rum, I think, was the winner of that. And my old man took both. He managed to get both. Sweet. But it was only like, literally, he came on watch and he saw it. I bet you it had been there in sight for about 20 minutes and my brother hadn't seen it. So. So the pack ice, when we get the pack ice. Icebergs are one thing, the pack ice is pretty dangerous. So getting through there, we were pretty much on tenthooks. Absolutely beautiful conditions, you know, beautiful ice, but we felt really worried about that, you know, and it makes me empathise with Shackleton and Scott and all those going through the pack ice with no idea of what's ahead.
Geez, that was pretty freaky, eh? We followed a open lead, pretty wide open lead, down towards the southwest, and just started to close in, continue to close in, and I could see open water ahead here, but trying to get to it, we had to twist and turn and duck and dodge and weave. Yeah, don't want to do that again. But we made it, we're out. We're in open water. I think we're now in the shore lead.
About 18 hours basically in the ice.
Oh, not looking forward to the trip out. It's going to be like this.
Basically what you get there is the sea ice gets blown off the coast and you get about a 5 to 10 mile sort of gap called the shore lead inside it. So once we got inside that, it's pretty much open water and we could manoeuvre around the coast. But a big bout of pack was to seaward of us, sort of blocking our trip back. But up ahead is Commonwealth Bay. So we got in there, two, 3 in the morning, and tied about a gazillion shorelines there to make sure the boat wasn't going to go anywhere, because it does have the world record as the windiest place in the world. So I forget how many, but you know, basically all winter it just blows at gale force, and for a fair chunk of summer it's extreme. And as we'll see soon, we sure got Cape Denison Katabatic.
Oh, it's gone.
So that's Mawson's hut, and obviously, there you go, there's some wood for you. The replica is obviously in Hobart here. My father ended up building that with my brother, so it was kind of neat that they'd been down there.
Matt's doing some washing. He did it last night.
Too well.
He did it last night and hung it up. And it's frozen. Hey, it's a bit steamy in here. I better wipe the lens. Oh, that's better. Oh well, the heater's on. Got the little diesel heater burning away. Look, down there. Hopefully that'll warm everything up.
Nice and warm, Dad.
Cold hands.
Yeah, so that's a proper Cape Denison Katabatic. And this went continuously for about 5 days. I think they recorded 92 knots or something. And gradually everything on the boat started to ice up. The boat got lower and lower. You can see a big block of ice on the rigging. At one stage that was nearly a foot in diameter. I had 50 mil of insulation on the deck head, but down at the floor there was nothing. So that was like, you get a thermometer, it was 15 degrees at the deck, and down at the floor it would be like, you know, be frost forming on the floor.
Just a little bit nippy. Bit of a breeze blowing too.
Since we arrived, the 4th day of solid gales. It's been blowing now for storm force basically for 4 days solid.
And then we decided we'd better leave before the next Katabatic came through. It looked like we had a couple of good days of weather, so out we go. Amazing the change. Like, you know, a few days, 4 days, 5 days earlier we had 5 degrees, I think it was, you know, so it was almost hot. You're walking around in t-shirts, and a bit like Tassie really. And now it's freezing, you know, everything's... It took us a good chunk of the day to get all the ice out.
That's the plan. We're at Commonwealth Bay, Cape Denison. There's Mike's just told us, and Don and Margie have just told us that there's solid ice packed right out here. So we're kind of a bit stuck. So we don't want to stay here. We're going to head across to Port Martin and then the French base and see what happens with the ice. So basically, We're somewhere around here. Let's head from Commonwealth Bay. It's about 30 miles, a nice day's run round to Port Martin. It's an old French base. Also claims to be one of the windiest places in the world with Commonwealth Bay, so it'd be kind of neat to see that as well. And it's quite an interesting little wee spot. You know, there's a whole bunch of little wee islands and anchorages. We may even be one of the first small yachts to go into Port Martin. I think I'd like to have a look inside this little bay here and, you know, just see what it's all about.
Just sitting in Port Martin here. Pretty tight little entrance. Just checking it out as a possible anchorage. Doesn't look all that crash hot.
From Port Martin, another 30-mile hop outside the Astrolabe glacier that flows out here, down to Dumont Deville.
Okay, do you have an authorization to come here? Do you want to stay on the boat, or do you wish to go down to the station?
We have an authorization from Antarctic Division.
So we were lucky. The French were really good. We had a great time there, and we waited for the weather and the ice to break out, and headed off. I think we spent 6 or 7 days at the French base. And we made a lot of friends, and it was quite sad to leave, actually.
The last of our goals was to cross the South Magnetic Pole. Yes, we're here now, just coming up to it. In fact, I can see a little pole sticking out of the water. South Pole! Are you ready, Ben? Only pages. Welcome to the Furious 50s, Matt.
Tuesday night at the movies. All we need is some popcorn.
Yeah, popcorn,
Yeah,
Matt.
Matt. Yeah, popcorn.
And we ended up having a cracking sail home, picked up the westerlies, tore home at a great rate of knots, and it seemed like a blink of an eye we were back in Tassie. That started off a chain of all sorts of things. The next year I was still keen for adventure. I got an offer to go on Blizzard from Hobart via the sub-Antarctic islands to Patagonia in Chile. So that was a fantastic voyage. Spirit of Sydney, 60-foot another aluminium boat, sorry. Did have a bit of wood on it. She's an open 60, so she did the BOC with, based out of Sydney, Australian guy took that round, designed by Ben Lexon. So pretty much our route was from Ushuaia down to the peninsula and back. 1 month, 3 one-month trips. So we had passengers aboard, 8 passengers and 2 crew. Yeah, it was more of an expedition type ship. So I was mate on for a couple of trips and master for one of them. So we did have a bunch of share of dramas. I don't look very happy there because I'd had to go and dive on the rudder and bolt the rudder back on. So we'd lost, the vibration had shook out a couple of the bolts holding that on. So I found it when we just got across the Drake. I sort of went out and I looked at it. We'd had a issue with that in Ushuaia, and we thought we'd fixed it. But lucky I was able to borrow some dry suit and a dive tank, and I could find a few more bolts, and we strapped it back on and kept a close eye on it to get home. So there was a lot of things, and part of this job is things break. And on boats that are used hard, they break all the time. And when you've got passengers on board, you don't have time to fix them. So yeah, there's a constant cycle of repairing things, something else breaks, you know, around trying to do trips. So it's very hard work. There you go, wooden boat for you. I thought I had to do something. There's a lot of history there. So this is actually from the whaling down in the peninsula, big whaling area. This is in Deception Island, which is one of the volcanic islands where the whaling station was. Any ideas what she was for? It's actually a water boat. So they were used for delivering water out to the steamships. So they're scattered all over the Antarctic peninsula. Quite cute little things, mostly decrepit and falling apart now. I think they're just basically flat bottom punts, but they look quite good. And you know, it's a land of contrast. When it's beautiful, it's beautiful. You know, twilight hour when the sun's setting, you know, clear skies, the reds, the blues, the colours are magnificent. I've jumped from Spirit of Sydney now, I've jumped to Ocean Tramp, so this is the yacht that I've been working on recently. So we've been doing similar things with guests on board. This one's a bit more straightforward. This one is they fly down to Antarctica. We pick them up at King George Island in the Shetlands, and we only go around for about 2 weeks, so a 2-week cruise around the peninsula, and then we come back. You can see this old ship here. I think it's the Governor. She's an old whaling ship that was actually deliberately wrecked there when she caught on fire. So they ran her up in there and flooded her with water to put out the coal fire. But from our point of view, it's wonderful because it's like the best anchorage and it's the best harbour. We've got a boat to tie up. You chuck your fenders out. You find a bit of rusty metal to tie a couple of lines on, and you're set. Beautiful place. So I spent quite a bit of time there. That's where we repaired Spirit of Sydney's rudder, tied up alongside there, just to prove I am actually there. Yeah, and again, another beautiful day. You just get days like this when it is absolutely incredible. Not a breath of wind, ice everywhere, just a wonderful place. And other days like this where it's looking pretty wild. People think of Antarctica as being white. It's actually often blue. That blue colour shines through. And this photo doesn't capture it. In reality, it's actually sort of glowing like with an inner blue sort of colour. It's amazing. It truly is a beautiful place when it's good. Yeah, we'd go out for trips. We'd take our charter guests around. And there's actually a leopard seal here. You probably can't see it, but a leopard seal. I was quite happy with the leopard seal. I don't mind leopard seals on the rocks. I don't like leopard seals around our dinghy. I've been chased by a couple. They are known to bite zodiacs, and zodiacs come off second best. So yeah, it's always a bit nerve-wracking when you see a leopard seal. And I even got chased by one in a sea kayak once down there when I ended up having to bail out onto an island and spent about half an hour on the island trying to get past it, and in the end I ended up throwing a rock at the thing. You might edit that one out. The rock. I didn't hit it though. I didn't hit it. I love this photo because it captures the two sides of Antarctica. You've got the sun there, you know, the beautiful sun, and then the storm clouds rolling in. It's so typical, two-sided. You know, there doesn't seem to be much in between. So it truly is a land of contrast. And I'll quickly flip through this afterwards, but yeah, and then getting back from Antarctica back to the Ushuaia or the fjords is often a nightmare. The winds are against you. Cape Horn is about 5 days away, so you're looking at the weather forecast. By the time you think you've got a gap in the weather, halfway across that gap closes or shifts. So yeah, I think 5 times sailing back now. I think my strike rate, 2 of them have been bad, 3 of them have been good. So yeah, when I say bad, we survived, but it was been fairly wild. So, you know, you get off Cape Horn and you end up with 50, 60 knots for sort of 6 to 8 hours. And yeah, you get in under the lee of it and you're mighty glad when you tuck into an anchorage and it's still howling, but you're like, oh, glad we're out of that. Glad we got in when we did. But it's always a bit of a crapshoot trying to get off and find a weather window to get to the other side. And you're always pushed for time. So from there, we actually went on and did a season up the Patagonia. So if you guys have ever been, the southern tip, I actually rate this far higher than the peninsula. Southern tip of South America and Patagonia is just incredible, up from Ushuaia and Puerto Williams. So Ushuaia is the Argentinian side and Puerto Williams is the Chilean. So we pretty much followed this red line up here with a crew of scientists. So the idea was these scientists were dating the ice sheet as it dissipated somewhere in the last 10,000 years ago. So that informs their climate models and stuff. So this is all fancy terminology, which I got quite into it. Amazing stuff they do. So basically they're looking for rocks that were left. I won't go into the things. They had this incredible eye with steam along, and they'd go, the climate scientists would look at that and they'd go, that is the moraine lines from an old glacier. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yep, there it is. So I've highlighted it and you can see how that glacier's retreated and it's left rocks. So we'd basically have to land them there. They'd walk all the way up there during the day and they'd chip hunks of rock off and bring them back. And the saloon table would be covered in rocks, and then they'd go away over the next few years and process them and date them and work out when that glacier had receded, and then test that against climate models. So really interesting stuff. Incredibly clever people and so dedicated. So, there's a rock. When they see a rock, their eyes light up and off they go. But for me, I look at that and I'm like, look at the view. You've got a glacier, a waterfall, the yacht down there, a condor flying overhead, and a rock. To get the green, if you've been in Antarctica for a while, as soon as when you come back, the green just hits you, because there's not a lot of green in Antarctica. So just you can see how these glaciers are retreating. When I was there 15, 20 years earlier, that had been down about that level. So every day off they'd go in the dinghy, in the Zodiac, truck them off. We'd go and fix things that had broken. Like generators, and sat phones. We'd cook some dinner. Of course, it was approaching winter by then, so we had big days of snow sometimes. Charting down there is something else. If you look at that, there we are. Yeah. In fact, the channel goes straight through there, so I don't know why this particular chart decided to draw it up there. I've got a rough idea, but yeah, it was all through the place. You'd be steaming through land, and when they weren't looking for rocks, they were looking for bog holes, and then they'd take samples out of the bog holes. Yeah, so you can imagine a day of that's like, the smell. Because we had 8 people on the boat, plus 3 crew, so there's a lot of people on a small boat. There's a lot of smells going around, and I don't know if you can probably just make out the boat down the bottom there. Yeah. So that's Ocean Tramp. You tuck her into a little cove, tie a bunch of shorelines, and you'd be pretty well bomber. You'd tie up there. Could take you a little while to find a good spot to tie in, and there she is tied in there across to a slightly inadequate tree there.
So generally 2 bow lines, an anchor.
Yeah, we'd have an anchor with 80 odd metres of chain out the front, a couple of stern lines, a couple of bow lines. Yeah.
Got about 5 points of
Yeah. But the problem is, if something goes, you haven't got far to the rocks. We're often only a couple of metres away from the rocks. Yeah. This year we actually went up. Well, last year it is now. We went up and we finished off the job and did much further out. So that was a bit more of an extreme run. Down there where not many yachts get to, and we went to a lot of areas where the Chilean keep a pretty tight eye on where you can go, so they were out off the beaten track. We had to get special permits to go there, and there was no real info, no charts. A lot of it was unsurveyed, so steaming through unsurveyed, trying to find anchoring depths and work out where we can put crews ashore was good fun. So it's a lot like Port Davey in a lot of ways. It's a lot like Tasmania, but with glaciers and mountains and condors. But that's about it. That's about all I had. I have got more stuff, but I think that'll do. Not enough wooden boats.